part of the gas lamp district and the wharf and all of that. Had a beautiful location, but got sick with the flu for about 4 days. Then I went up to my sister's. It was her birthday, so we went up there, and because I was still recovering, we just had a nice kind of kickback 3 or 4 days with her. Didn't try to do much, just stayed in. It was 103 degrees out anyway. And then at the end of that, which was in my mind part 3, then we did the water polo. My grandson had the Junior Olympic water polo team with, and they were playing down in the Anaheim, Irvine area, and this big tournament that they have. So then we spent another 4 days there. So it was kind of 4 days, 4 days, 4 days, 4 days. And right in the heart of that, I was down with the flu. It was not fun. So it took me several days beyond the flu, and it took me several days to recover.
Oh yeah, so it wasn't as much kickback time.
I got some good reading in, and we were in a great spot in San Diego that I just couldn't enjoy because I was down with the flu.
Right. So
all in all, did you hear any late news from Jeff?
no, that's what. If I'm distracted, that's why. And he was going to text me to see if I could pick him up after the board meeting. So, hey Deb.
Yes.
Just a heads up, and I don't know when you'd like me to mention this, but there's one item on the consent agenda I would like to pull off for discussion, but not for separate action. I think there's a way I might be able to ask the board a question that might ease up the workload on the staff a little bit, but
Which item?
what?
Which item? Which item?
It's
9.4. And that's March. Yeah. So
Marcia.
and I already talked with Karen about that, but I didn't really get any kind of response. I mean, she said she thought she had seen other ones be past that, but I just 9.4.
So Marcia, I don't think we have to say it ahead of time. I just say it's
Okay.
any discussion prior to the.
Yes,
and
thank
then
you.
can bring it up then.
I just wanted to confirm
thank you.
and let you know.
Thank you.
And just to, which I don't even know, I've never done that, so this is how I imagine I would look if I did.
And you can just come and stand, if you don't mind, right in front of the podium here. And then we'll ask everyone to.
So basically, in the middle of this week,
Was really running.
so there was some.
Normally when you get a chicken in a roast dish, it's like a pretty size. I don't know how yours was.
Well, I love the pasta, but it was not outstanding.
I love the cut salad too, but my cream sauce was just like really runny. And I was like, what do they do? You just food processor chop up my chicken. Is this supposed to be on all of those? Oh, these are sips.
That's what you did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are mine. She brought them for
Those
me.
are you.
Yeah, that's right. He's down in Portland.
Okay. The 14, Audrey's the team below Audrey's in Reno right now. The team above Audrey's is California for Nationals.
Well, he's in some big end of the year coming in town, and I used to go to him. And it's today through Sunday. And it's,
Well, they just, us just, they won the state cup. Leslie said she was gonna get lost. You okay? Okay. I did, because I took the exit and I So, you've got 6 minutes, and then I can give you a few grace minutes, and we'll be fine. Okay. I won't share that one.
Like I'm outside, I was in Crescent Bar out sitting in a boat for like 3 solid days. Gotcha. Okay.
Drive safely.
I wasn't, it's all been, and I was on a houseboat over on Lake Roosevelt.
You were? Out of where? Oh, Two Rivers. We're going out of Kettle Falls a week from now.
Are you on vacation or something? Are you on vacation? Yeah.
Love that. Hey, quick question for you.
Yes, we're right there. I think that's what they can say.
I had a meeting on my calendar today for 5, and maybe that's the next meeting.
We had a great meeting without.
Okay. Okay. Did you have one?
No, because Art wasn't there.
But it was on my calendar for some reason.
We had things to share.
Is there anything anything drop the mic kind of stuff? How's it going with?
For the person to Harrison, 546.
You can keep it. You don't have to. Actually, no, you can bring it back. You know,
Constantly trying to figure out.
school board meeting.
Hi there. I got your message. I just walked into the board meeting. So the meeting starts in about 5 minutes, but I'll figure out, our house cleaners are showing up tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Our house cleaners are showing up tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
So, you know, sometimes
So I will get them started.
Oh, you're welcome. Figure that's 5-6 hours without any sustenance.
That's good.
Karen says she's good with that Monday night, the 12th at 7 o'clock. I told her it's her evening.
Yes. I'm glad she's available because it took us a half an hour to come up with that.
We
deal.
have one of the days that's an administrative retreat all day, but that's okay. We can make it work. From the looks of the calendar, there was no other day.
You know, it's crazy when people are done with vacations. That's pretty hard. He's asking you something.
Have you? Oh, I've got 2 minutes. She's driving, she took the wrong exit and it's traffic. We've got 2 minutes.
She's here. She just ran in.
Yep, she hears.
We have enough time for me to take a real quick nap.
You're running.
I get to go to the airport in 3 hours.
You two, if you both start to kind of drift off there.
Yeah, you might need to like elbow us a little bit.
Short,
Cue
short
me if I
elbow.
forget to read something.
This, oh, you know, you gave me love this, because I'm sure you've had this experience. I'm working with this guy, and something came up about when he was hired, and it said he was hired in 1988, and he goes, "That's when I was born."
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I had one of those earlier today.
And our, yeah, if you want to spend a meeting, no, I'm distracted. I just want to start with those.
He offers the whole crew.
So this list means he wants
Like a German caffeine pill. And I go, is that illegal? It doesn't even sound legal. He says, it's a candy. It tastes like Coca-Cola. I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, I'm not gonna start
We're
now.
gonna get fired if we get tested later.
I don't wanna find out afterwards.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah,
A
it was
little
my
more than
mistake.
that.
Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks again for being here. Get you going.
Did you get lost? Well, I just. Everybody started at 144. Mine is just.
Okay. I call the July 25th, 2019 Peninsula School District Board of Directors regular meeting to order. Tonight we have some special guests here, and we would like to ask Troop 27 Boy Scout Troop 27 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Troop 27, and they're here tonight working on a badge. Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, this business meeting of the Board of Directors is being held in public in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is being live streamed. With regard to routine matters, board members have reviewed the agenda and have had the opportunity to clarify questions with the superintendent prior to the board meeting. Such matters are often processed without additional comment or debate. Start with the approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda has been approved. Dr. Jarvis will now present the superintendent's report to the board.
It is my pleasure to announce that the month of July has passed and that we're getting closer to August, and with August, we welcome the staff back. We have a number of retreats. We start school on the August 28th, and I say that with some humor just for our young visitors there to remind them that school is just around the corner and to say thank you. But in all honesty, it's I wanted to specifically compliment Mr. Gillespie and his staff on the summer, the maintenance, and you see the evidence throughout the district of the work that's being done by the maintenance staff and the changes and accommodations for people, and just to express our appreciation publicly for that kind of diligence and that kind of work in this sort of short, rare time period that we have in the summer. So as you pulled up today, you saw new white stripes and things that occur in some cases unnoticed throughout the district, but our compliments to the entire team and what they do for the schools. Secondly is just a note that coming up in really the first week of August, we will have our administrators back and begin 4 days, 2 days and 2 separate weeks of gatherings to really prepare and launch the school year. I'm tempted to talk about some of the capital projects, but since we have a report this evening, I'm going to defer on that one and just say that at this point, the school district is healthy. active and as people come back, well-rested. Thank you.
Hopefully yourself included.
Thank you.
Members of the audience wishing to speak to the board are asked to identify themselves for the record before sharing their comments. We ask that comments not be personally directed, abusive, or obscene. In the interest of fairness, there is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Please note that this is the opportunity to speak to the board and that the board will listen but not engage in dialogue or offer a response. Thank you for respecting these guidelines. And with that, I move on to public comment, and I ask Sammy Jensen.
Good afternoon. I wanted to speak to the board about the Compass, the magazine that the board school district puts out. And I want to thank them because there's so much information. Sorry about that. And I think it's just fun, and it's a fun issue to get in the mail and to pick up and just know about what's going on with the school district here in the peninsula. Just some couple pointers I'd like to mention is the volume that just came out had no volume number, so I can't even refer it to you as what volume number. If it wasn't for Dr. Jarvis mentioning the graduates and it was 2019, you really wouldn't know what month and what year it was. So for prosperity and for reason, for the future to know what's going on, a volume number would be available, should be available. And if you go to page 14, in there, field day. On field day, you have all the schools, Purdy, Voyager, and many of the other schools mentioned here, but you have 0 mention of the KP schools. So we have 8 elementary schools, soon to be 10. So we need to be excited for all our schools and include all of them, not just the ones that are over here on this side and neglect what's going on that side. And on the last page, you had another opportunity, again, to mention the KP kids. And in there, you mentioned Goodman, Purdy, Kopachuk, Goodman again, Discovery, 0, again, for keeping in the schools. So we need to make sure that you guys are aware of that and that not to forget those kids there. Because we are parents on that side, and we want to see our kids in the magazine as well, and save this for the future. Like, look, you got featured, your school got featured, and that's not possible in this magazine and in other magazines. But so hopefully, I'm not critiquing. I'm trying to be positive because I think this is a great source, and I know that it's a little outdated with the schools going on. So going now, elementary number 9 is now Pioneer. Yay! I drove by and there's some amazing things happening there. I'm sorry, number 9, number 10. So I just want to make sure that you guys are tuned and aware of that and do an outstanding job for us, period. Right. Thanks.
Thank you, Sammy. Okay, I now ask Carol Rivera.
Well, it's a nice evening to be here. I'm conducting school business, so thank you for all that our staff does to get it ready for the schools in August. I wanted today to talk briefly about the new business items that you'll be looking at, which are the student discipline and behavior and those pieces. I think over a year and a half ago, we kind of had that same discussion where there was some delay bringing these to the board because we had some concerns about involvement of staff and making sure that we, communicated with all our staff that are responsible for managing behaviors, supporting positive behaviors in our schools. So I wanted to thank the district for the opportunity that they provided over the past year to do so. This was a big piece of our negotiations last summer. We've established some committees. The district really listened to a lot of the needs of not just my certificated teachers, but also our classified, our bus drivers, everybody. And so I know that discipline and behavior and really kind of wrapping around our kids and our staff is going to be a focus for next year in our BPD days. And our staff is really excited about the learning with that, receiving tools and trainings, and actually being part of the process to help improve those things in our schools. So thank you.
Thank you. With that, any other comments? Okay. Thank you. Capital Projects Management Report. Jeff Green will now present the capital projects report to the board.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again this evening. It's a beautiful evening. So it's been a very busy summer, and I want to particularly thank the principals. We anticipated that everybody would go home and leave us alone in July, but as it turns out, it wasn't true. All the principals stayed around and have participated in all the meetings throughout July, as have many other of the staff members, which has allowed us to make a lot of revisions to bring us closer to what the objectives of the district are. So I want to particularly thank them for their time and commitment. There are a number of contracts on your consent agenda today. There's 2 contracts for value analysis and a contract for commissioning. So the value analysis we're doing on all 4 projects, even though it's a state requirement for only 2 of the projects. And what we've done is we have one of our architects is looking at the other architect's work and vice versa. We're trying to build breadth and understanding of the district's program among all of the participants in our process. We've also will be starting work with a well consultant or several well advisors for Evergreen, so that one of our issues there is to get the well upgraded to support our new building. So we think we have a lot of the issues identified, but there will be a process. It'll be ongoing to get that well certified at a level at which allows us to do the addition at that facility. So Patrick is with me. Patrick's going to give several parts of the presentation tonight.
So in regards to the Evergreen property, the due diligence analysis of that purchase is concluding. No significant findings were found, and we've waived the contingency for that. So that kind of paves the way for, you'll see on the agenda tonight, we'll be asking for your approval to continue that process to close on that at the end of the month. We are working on the modifications of Boys and Girls Club to provide for Pioneer Elementary School for the fall of 2019 under construction. I say Pioneer, but really it's the Discovery kids there to make sure we honor those kids. Right now, everything, the contractor there is working hard and diligently. We're on schedule to complete on time. It should be right around the middle of August. So we're excited about that, and we should, if all goes well, keeps that path, be ready to go for the first day of school.
You should have received electronically a copy of the educational specification document. So we, at some point on the 2 projects that are deprocessed, will ask for an approval of that ed spec, but it does get modified over time, and as the buildings get developed, little changes are made to the ed spec, so we don't bring it to you and for formal approval until we're ready to submit a D5 application. So it could be several months. And there are little changes being made, but the core of the document remains the same. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us questions.
We continue to work on the design and material standards.
I was going to bring you a copy of the design material standards.
It's almost as thick as
but
this.
I couldn't carry it. So.
This is a different report, but it's as thick. But we continue to work on that. We're have a draft copy that we got out to the design team so that they can start looking at it and implementing it. We continue to have more meetings and dial it in closer and closer, and we look forward to getting that completed.
So one of our objectives was to get design and material standards established concurrent with the schematic design. So if you remember when we first talked, we had a calendar, and we're at the end of the first phase of design on all of our projects, and that's called schematic design. It's the first time we get cost estimates, the first time we get an outline specification that identifies all the materials. We wanted the outline specifications to be consistent with the design and material standards. So design and material has been a major effort of Patrick and Calvin Gasway, my partner, over the last 2 months to get that up to speed. As far as the documents that are being prepared, so the Pioneer documents are being prepared in a formal manner to go into an application that's going to be submitted July 31st. The document actually doesn't, it's still being evolved. So we're solving problems as we get closer to August 31st, and we're happy to share with you the status of the project at each point, or the status of the application. So, but the application will include exterior elevations and colors, materials and colors of the exterior. So we got some preliminary documents from the architect this morning, maybe it was last night, and we'll probably be painting some samples and making some choices. The district administration will. So if, as you want to follow along with that, that document will go in on the 31st, and so as we get closer to that, those decisions will be finalized. The building looks much like the building that we showed you initially as far as the general approach, but plan has been revised, parking has been revised, landscaping and fields have been revised, and are continuing to evolve as we meet each of the items required for that submittal. For elementary 9, we're using a different process at the city. So we think it's most beneficial to go through the design review board process at the city on 9. So we've actually made an application for a preliminary review for the design review board. And that meeting will occur in the first week in August. We'll get feedback, and then we'll make a formal application later in August to the city. That formal application will have the same elements that Pioneer application has. So it'll have exterior elevations, the massing, layout of the building, the site development, exterior materials and colors. And so as we get close to that application, we'll be able to share with you, if you stop by, exactly the status of it and what questions are still open. For the 2 projects that are in the county, so we're also at schematic design on those 2 projects. So that means we have building plans and elevations. We have the ability to do formal cost estimates, which are in process. But we don't have the same land use process with the jurisdiction. So about every other day we get a package of information from the architects that includes a huge amount of technical information that we're reviewing. We don't have all the cost estimates yet, but we plan to bring an update in August on those projects, on the status of schematic design on those 2 projects. And we will be starting the SEPA applications, and there's a formal traffic application that we make to Pierce County, and that'll all kick off in August. So that's the status of the projects. It's 5.5 months since the bond issue. So we remain on schedule or slightly ahead of schedule and on budget. So we're pleased with the progress that's being made.
Yeah, we got some great people working on this. It's amazing how fast we're going on all the projects, especially Pioneer Elementary. So I'm really happy with all the groups, and I know a lot of people are dedicated to getting this done, and I know Dr. Jarvis has been pushing us and giving us great leadership through the process, so we appreciate him for that.
So our team has expanded. There may be as many as maybe 100, 120 people that are all working. Nobody has complained. So all of the consultants, all of the engineers, sometimes shock in their face, but no complaints. Everybody's all in.
They're too shocked to complain. So.
Excellent,
That's it.
thank you. Questions? Marcia?
On the design and materials standards that you're developing, I think that's you, Patrick? Yeah. My question has to do with standardization to basically for the training of your staff, maintaining buildings and so forth. Could you speak to that? Are we thinking about that as we move forward?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we're trying to make standardization in the buildings as much as we can, but we do have some issues with, like Pioneer Elementary as it's half-built, so it kind of lends itself to one thing. We don't have gas out at Evergreen, so it lends itself to another type of heating. So yes, we're trying to standardize so that we have very similar things, so our staff only has to learn one product. But within that, there's gonna be some discrepancies and differences, but we were working really hard to try and make it as close to everything's very similar, at least mechanically, but yet having each building have its own unique appearance and feel, because they're each a little different. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. I just think that we've been there where we had a different color of paint in every school and every classroom, and, you know, taking care of things, you know, and maintaining supplies in your departments, so.
We haven't quite got to interior paint yet.
I'm sure.
But exterior, we're just starting to touch it because we have to have that, like Jeff was talking about for Pioneer here pretty soon. So we're just kind of starting to play with that a little bit, but we haven't really fully gotten into the interior pieces, other than we're gonna be talking about what quality of paint we want and things like that. And then we'll get into the design boards, which we'll get, you know, again, I'll reiterate what Jeff said, we have great principals who have really helped out with this, and I think those principals really made these schools better, and they'll help with picking those colors and making great choices, so.
Great. Thank you.
Leslie?
Okay.
Laura? David?
Couple questions. One, I mean, I don't know if you know the answer to this, if not, maybe Stephanie. Teacher morale for the teachers that are moving from Discovery over to the future Pioneer Elementary, how's that going? How's the move going? Are they excited about the move? I know months ago there was some angst about it. How's that going?
I would say summer's good.
Come on up, Stephanie. Thanks, Stephanie. This is Stephanie Strader, principal at Pioneer Elementary.
I would say summer, it has been good, some space, some distance, some time. It's still hard to be disassociated from their environment, but I would say Delana Halliday, the new principal at Discovery, David Brooks, and myself, we've been working very, very intentionally about how do we make sure that they're still connected. It's hard for them too, because they have essentially three administrators, so who do we talk to about what? So we're working on all those details right now, but one of them, excuse me, one of them has been there all week, and I think they're finally at that point where, you know, let's do this for kids and figure out all the nitty-gritty details that need to come in the next month, so.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Another question is, feedback I heard from the Key Peninsulas, there was some, I guess, displeasure that the Key Peninsula News had photographs of the schools, and the Evergreen was just this sort of a picture of a box, you know, because it's a generic images that we saw. Where the one Pioneer Elementary, obviously there's already a building there and it's nice. And so maybe in the future, if we put any kind of updates in it, we put a little disclaimer in there that says this is not how the school's actually gonna look.
So, and I've heard that too. It's, those were maybe a couple months ago pictures, and so those were just kind of, you know, some really quick thrown together things to kind of start that process. And if you see some of the things that we have today, it takes that picture that's in there and makes it look archaic.
Yeah.
We've come a long way. We move really, really fast. We'll get a, you know, design today, and then we'll like tweak it based on input from our group, and then we'll get a new one the next day, and it tweaks again. So even if I showed you today's, tomorrow it could be completely different. But yeah, we have talked a little bit about, you know, can we put something in this as of this date, and it'll continue to progress from there.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of things that kind of have to come together before we really want to share publicly. So we would want not only the design to be appealing and the program to be met and the materials to be right, but we want it to be on budget as well. And so we're just at the point, we don't have cost estimates for all of these, so we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to look like if, in fact, they're on budget. And if they're not on budget, they're going to get revised a little bit. And we'd rather revise before we show them to you.
Yeah, I don't think there's an issue with the image that was in the paper. I just think if there would have been something in there that said, this is, you know, just so they know that that's not how the school's gonna look when it's done.
Yeah.
So I just heard some feedback. And then the other, what restrictions on the color of the schools within the city limits are there?
So
I know we're not gonna make it mauve or anything, but I mean, what?
So the city has a complete design manual around it, and There's some muted greens and reds and blues, I believe, that they allow, and then lots of browns and earth tones. And I think even they kind of describe it as a little boring, but I think that, it's by design. It's very natural in nature, which kind of goes against a little bit what we want to, when they do those things, it's not thought about like every single way can be applicated to the building. And as a school, sometimes you want kind of colors that pop and do different things. And we're going to try our hardest to get some of those in there. But we do have to meet the design standard if we want to move forward with the buildings. And I think the city's done a good job making a nice gig harbor, so it's kind of hard to fault them a little bit that they didn't think of schools when they put that together.
So Patrick's done a really good job of reminding me of all of the buildings that pop in town, and then I've been going out and photographing them all and sharing those photographs with the architects. So there's actually quite a bit of different colors that are used on new buildings in town, and I don't think that we should feel the city's unduly restrictive. I think they've approved quite a wide variety of colors, and so we're looking for a color system that appeals to our client base that are children and not just to a commercial public. So we don't really we have some proposals on colors for Pioneer, but we don't have any color proposals yet for Elementary 9.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of on that same line, when you're talking about the colors of the school, you're not talking about the mascot themed
No.
colors, right? So just-
Exterior colors, Robbie.
Okay.
So we'll be excited. I'm guessing at some point there'll be a group that'll pick
That's
out
really
a
cool.
mascot and some colors,
Okay.
and that'll start to maybe make a difference on some of the decisions we made. So we made a decision the other day where if we'd known what the mascot colors were, maybe we would have made a different choice. But we made a very good choice that's pretty generic, and I can always repurpose later if we make a change, and it's pretty minor costs that we're putting into that.
Good
So
thinking.
thinking ahead.
And then somebody said you can stop by and see the design documents.
What's that?
I think somebody said you can stop by if you want to see the design documents. Where's stopping by?
So
Just anywhere.
Vicky,
I know, like, I was saying, what, do you always have the design documents?
I'm now
with you?
sharing an office with Vicky upstairs.
Upstairs, okay,
Right,
thank you.
and
I just didn't know where.
every
stop by
morning by
was.
10 o'clock, we have today's documents
Okay, great,
out to look at for today,
okay.
so.
And then lastly, I drove by Henderson Bay today, and I also drove to the district today. A lot of road construction going on. As we approach school, is there a way, have we thought about communicating out to parents and the buses, what to expect in terms of timing and bus waits and road waits and all of that? Or is it all gonna be done?
Well, yeah, so the one on Scansy, that, it seemed like it was, when they were down by the Purdy prison, it seemed like I was like a little worried that it was gonna take a long time. And then all of a sudden, within like 2 days, they're basically in front of Pioneer Elementary. So I'm not too worried about that construction.
Okay.
Here, the light project, the city's working on that. We've had some discussions around it. They've assured us that we'll have that road open by the time school starts, so we get buses in and out. The light's not scheduled to be fully operational though until right around the first of the year. So there'll still be some stuff going on, but they should be able to get buses in and out. We're monitoring that, checking up on them, and seeing where that lands, so that if we do need to get some communication out, we'll be scrambling, because we're watching, we're all a little nervous, but they're aware we're nervous, and they're working very, very hard to get it. So I've been talking with them, not regularly, but often enough to know what's going on and make sure they're aware that we need it open. So.
And David had another question, thanks.
Sure.
So you mentioned if you'd had known the color of the mascot, it might have made a difference. There was a bit of a process to name the school. What's the process for getting the mascot picked out?
Go down the list of things that Stephanie hasn't had a chance to tackle yet.
We don't have any board policy on it, though.
We do not.
Okay, no board policy. Didn't think I'd read that. Okay, is that it? Excellent. Any other questions? No? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
I love hearing ahead of schedule and on budget. Thanks.
Yes, we do too.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.1, policy 42 Regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises is being presented for a second reading. Is there a motion to adopt policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises?
I move approval of policy 4210.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay. It has been moved by Marcia and seconded by Leslie to adopt policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has been approved. Moving on to 7.2, this is for information only. It's a procedure 4210P, regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises is being presented for information only. Is there any discussion on the procedures? Okay. Moving on. We'll now move on to new business, deletion of policy 3420, student conduct. Is there a motion to delete policy 3420, student conduct?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote? It has been moved by David and seconded by Marcia to delete policy 3420, student conduct. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has been approved. Moving on to 8.2. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 1911, acquisition of real property in Lake Bay, Washington?
I'll move.
Sorry, Leslie? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote? It has been moved by Leslie and seconded by Marcia to adopt resolution 1911, acquisition of real property in Lake Bay, Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has been approved. 8.3, policy 3110, admission and qualifications of attendance is being presented for a first reading. Is there any discussion? Okay. So again, this is a first reading. It will come back to us later.
Okay, for the first reading, if we could have a briefing about the changes in this policy before we adopt it, changes from what the current attendance policy is, I think those changes are somewhat significant.
So you
And
want
there's
them
been changes in the law.
discussed tonight, or you want them noted
No,
for the board
before
meeting the next?
Before it's brought to us for approval,
Red line?
because I think that's probably Dan's bailiwick, he's been working on that.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
The changes are noted in your packet.
yeah, it doesn't need to be
They're already
changed.
noted?
Yeah.
So that they're already noted in the packet.
We can,
But we can
highlight that.
Right,
highlight them
I think it needs to be highlighted again.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to policy 3200, students' rights and responsibility. Again, this is a first reading. Is there any discussion? That will come back to us for second reading. Moving on to 8.5, procedure 3200P, student rights and responsibilities. This is again information only. Is there any discussion? 8.6, policy 3241, classroom management, corrective actions or punishment. This is again first reading. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to, is she still here? Vic-
Carol?
I mean, Carol is, I just was gonna ask is, are you satisfied with 3241? What? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. Moving on to 8.7, procedure 3241P, student discipline is being presented for information only procedure. Is there any discussion? Okay. Moving on to 8.8, tentative agreement between PSD and the Peninsula Principal Association through June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the tentative agreement?
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
I didn't get a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Lori
sorry.
seconded it. Okay, it has been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the tentative agreement between Peninsula School District and the Peninsula Principal Association through June 30th, 2021. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has been approved. Moving on to 8.9, is there a motion to approve the non-represented salary schedules for 2019, 2020? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
Yes, I have a piece. When we received that background, which came a little afterwards, the rest of the packet, at least I believe it did, it indicated that they were attached, the schedules, that
Okay.
they were not. And so we haven't seen them. It would be nice to see those.
I can present those to you. We're gonna have an executive session.
Okay, that'd be great.
But we can proceed.
You can table this one and come back after the exec session.
I think that'd be good.
Can we do that
Yes.
afterwards so that we have the opportunity to see the
Thank
schedules
you.
prior to? Okay, so we will not vote on this at this time, and we'll vote on after executive session tonight. Is that all that I need to do on that for this time? Okay. All right, we will now move to the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda prior to the vote? Marcia?
Yes, I'd like to raise the consent agenda item 9.4, budget status reports. I've noted that those reports are as of March, and we're now at the end of July, and next month we need to actually adopt a budget, and we really are a little bit in the dark as to where we are financially as a district. And one of the things in looking at that, we get a whole lot of background information with budget status reports. Budget status reports we're supposed to have on a pretty routine basis. And I'm thinking that maybe all those additional reports that are attached are taking more staff time than we need to have those attached with every single report. Sort of the trends over the last 6 years, the month-by-month enrollment changes, all the rest. And I was wondering if the board would be open to giving the business department the okay to not submit those every time, maybe once or twice a year, mid-year and at the end of the year, or you know, do some background information on what's happening with enrollment. But I think it's a good idea for us to receive those reports more promptly and on a more timely basis.
So you're suggesting decreasing the amount of information on every monthly report, so to allow it to come to us on a more timely manner, and then getting that more in-depth look every 6 months or so?
Right, and I wanted to know what the rest of the board
Yeah.
felt about that. It's a lot of information, and a lot of it looks the same from month to month. And so it's a lot of extra work for staff, it appears to me, so.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we can streamline it and make it a little bit more efficient, so we have the pertinent information, and having something more in-depth a few times a year makes a lot more sense to me, and it really helps the board with comprehension as well, so that when we are adopting the budget, we have a better, whole view.
Mhm.
Art, can do? Okay. Good suggestion.
Right,
Thank you.
right,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? And I will just add that while the SIP reports are in here, we're, as a board and district, are working on the content and delivery of those SIPs throughout the year, and that we'll be working on that in the next year. But as is, we'll keep as is. All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It has been moved by Leslie and seconded by Marcia to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. I'll now move on to board discussion and comments, and I'll ask each board member to share their summer activities. Board activities. Let me refrain that. Marcia?
I'd like to highlight the meeting that we had last Monday with the Finance and Audit Committee. Karen did an amazing job of explaining a terribly complex change in our budgeting process and sort of our revenues and looking ahead at levy setting and things that we need to consider and what we might want to look at in terms of a future levy issue or ballot measures. And so I look forward to that information being shared with the whole board. But I have to tell you, even though we didn't have a quorum to act on electing a new committee chair, at the meeting, it was very rich, very thoughtful, and I think gave us food for thought, and probably Karen too, in terms of moving forward and looking at where we go next. I've done other things too, but that was the sort of big, rich thing that happened within the last month or so.
Good. All right, thank you.
Oh, one other thing, the Peninsula Education Foundation is planning their breakfast. It's happening at the end of September, so mark your calendars, buy your tables.
Do you have a date? It's just end of September.
It's the last Thursday in September.
Okay.
I have to double check that, but, yeah,
Is that breakfast and lunch again?
yes.
Good.
And it's online for PSEF, so you can go online and register.
Let's see.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. David?
School's out, I'm enjoying my summer.
Good for you. Love it.
Even though there's no football for poor David, right?
Lots of baseball.
Lots of baseball.
Baseball, lots of baseball, yeah.
I think that it's been a really fabulous summer so far. It's always too short. I think tonight I would like to highlight all the great work that the Children's Home Society has been doing in partnership with the Red Barn. You know, we thought we were going to lose the Red Barn, and they stepped up and they embraced it. And Gina, their new executive director, is just so completely amazing. I never get tired of listening to her speak and promote and talk about the amazing programs that they have there and they've been able to develop. So I encourage people to go and support the kids at the Red Barn and maybe go see some of the programs because I think the MOU is only through the summer. So let's see if that's something that can be extended, you know, throughout the year. That would be my hope and my dream. And I also want to thank Becky McFay, our lead counselor, for working with Gina to kind of really work on some social and emotional pieces for our kids in the hopes to reduce truancy and other issues. So another great partnership.
Thank you, Leslie. Lori?
I also am just enjoying my summer, so, but working a lot. But and I also just want to say I just love the capital projects report just appreciate how much is being done by so many people, and it's just I'm in awe of how far we've come so quickly. So it's exciting.
It's
Very exciting. So much
to
art want to share.
Yeah.
Spill the beans on the board.
Go Browns.
It's hard. All right, I too have been playing or watching softball and enjoying my kids and doing all of that. I will say my daughter's taking summer school, which is good, so you can get a good look at the Internet Academy there. It's been a good experience. I just want to say I do appreciate the district really looking at behavior and corrective management and actions that we can do because just in general, I think there's some things that she's even seen through summer school as well as ending up at Peninsula that our teachers and administration needs some help on dealing with some of the things that are happening in our schools with our students. So won't go into details, but I thank the district for working on that and the board. We will now, if there's no other comments from the board, we will now go into executive session. Prior to going to executive session, in case some of you aren't here at the end, I just want to note we do have 2 future meetings for the summer. One was already noted on August 22nd to the regular meeting. We have added a meeting August 12th as a study session. It will be discussing the budget. It'll be at 7 p.m. at the ESC office. Just want to make that announcement. Again, we'll go into executive session at 7:50. Is that okay?
Six.
Give 6 minutes
Oh, okay.
To
Oh, I see.
at 7:50 for how long, Art?
Approximately 15 minutes.
So
So,
can I make a comment?
yep,
We have the Boy Scouts that came here tonight, there's maybe chat with a couple of the school board members. Could we take just a few minutes longer?
okay, so we will actually go into executive session at 7 PM until 7:15. There will be action taken after. And we will now break and,
Oh, I see.
is that fine? Okay,
Works.
excellent, thank you.